1 o'clock in the morning, August 8th, 1975. You are standing in absolute, suffocating darkness, waist-deep in freezing mud. The rain hasn't stopped for 3 days. You are a worker on the unbreakable iron dam, desperately throwing your weight against a rusted steel wheel to open the emergency floodgates. It refuses to budge. Below you, in the valley, millions of people are sleeping in their beds. You cannot see the water, but you can feel it. A reservoir the size of a sea, swelling, climbing, reaching the very edge of the concrete beneath your boots. And then, cutting through the howl of the typhoon, you hear it, not the wind. The sound of the mountain itself, tearing apart, long before the nightmare of Typhoon Nina. The Banqiao Dam was a symbol of absolute human triumph. Constructed in the early 1950s on the river Ru in China's Han province, it was a marvel of the modern age, built to tame the catastrophic floods that had plagued the basin for centuries. It was designed with the help of Soviet engineers. They called it the Iron Dam. It was mathematically calculated to withstand a once-in-a-thousand-years flood. The authorities believed they had finally placed a harness on nature. The valley below flourished. Farms expanded. Millions of people built their homes in the shadow of the dam, completely trusting the colossal wall of earth and concrete that loomed above them. But nature does not care for human mathematics, and water always finds the flaw. The fatal crack in the Banqiao Dam was not initially in the concrete. It was in the hubris of its creators. One man saw it coming, Chen Xing, a brilliant hydrologist involved in the project, looked at the blueprints and saw a death trap. He vehemently warned that the dam had too few sluice gates. If a massive storm hit, the reservoir would have no way to purge the excess water quickly enough. The dam would overtop. He begged the authorities to add 12 gates. They agreed to 5. Chen Xing refused to stay silent, becoming a vocal critic of the reckless over-engineering across the region. For his warnings, he was labeled a troublemaker, removed from the project, and purged from the system. The dam stood. The valley slept. Chen Xing's warnings were buried until August 1975. Typhoon Nina didn't just hit Han province. It collided with a cold front and stalled. It parked itself directly over the Banqiao Reservoir and simply emptied the heavens. Before we descend into the dark hours of August 8th, if you value these lost stories of human resilience and the harsh, forgotten lessons of history, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Now, return with me to the valley. The storm has arrived. August 7th. The rain is no longer falling in drops. It is a solid sheet of water. The dam's gauges break. They cannot measure the deluge in just 24 hours. The region receives more than a year's worth of rain. It is a 1-in-2,000-year event. At the dam, panic takes hold. The water level is rising at a terrifying speed. The workers sprint through the blinding storm to open the 5 emergency sluice gates. But Chen Xing's nightmare has manifested. Years of neglected maintenance have allowed thick, heavy silt to build up at the base of the gates. They are blocked at 12:30 a.m. The water reaches the crest of the dam. The workers send a desperate, final telegraph to the valley below: evacuate immediately. The dam is failing, but the storm has already wiped out the lines. The telegraph never arrives. Down in the valley, Families are huddled in their homes, listening to the rain on their roofs, entirely unaware that the ocean is about to drop on their heads. At 1 a.m., the iron dam breaks. It does not simply crack, it disintegrates. A colossal breach opens, and the reservoir vomits 600 million cubic meters of water into the valley. Imagine a wall of black water, 10 kilometers wide and up to 7 meters high. Moving at 50 kilometers per hour, it swallows the darkness. There is no time to scream. There is no time to run. Entire villages are erased from the face of the earth in seconds. The water acts like a gigantic, muddy bulldozer, snapping trees like twigs, tearing brick buildings to dust, and sweeping away train carriages as if they were toys. As the Banqiao water rushes down the valley, it slams into the next dam, and the next. Over the coming days, 62 dams will fail in a catastrophic domino effect. When dawn finally breaks, the valley is unrecognizable. The vibrant towns and farms are gone, replaced by a stagnant, endless sea of mud and debris. Survivors are left clinging to the tops of remaining trees or floating on ruined roofs, surrounded by the bodies of their neighbors, their families, and their livestock. The immediate death toll from the floodwaters is estimated at 26,000 human beings. But the tragedy was just beginning. With infrastructure annihilated, millions were trapped without food or clean water in the blistering August heat. Disease and famine quickly swept through the survivors. The final death toll, though highly suppressed for decades, is believed to have reached anywhere from 171,000 to 230,000 lives. It remains the deadliest structural failure in human history for over 20 years. The true scale of the Banqiao Dam disaster was hidden, classified as a state secret. It wasn't until the 1990s that the world finally learned of the nightmare in Henan and Chengqing, the man who tried to save them all. He was eventually brought back to help rebuild the river system, this time on his terms. The Banqiao Dam stands today, rebuilt, but the soil beneath it holds the memory of a terrifying truth. Nature cannot be conquered by iron and concrete alone when we ignore the warnings. When we let arrogance drown out expertise, it is never the architects who pay the price. It is always the people sleeping in the valley